Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. See, my first mistake, John. John and I were just talking about how we're going to introduce this, and I've managed to start off with a mistake in the first 20 seconds. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to kick off Careers Week here at Tech Educators, and hello to all of our school and colleges partners as well. Just to give a brief overview of what Careers Week is an opportunity for us to meet with and talk to some absolutely incredible people who have been in the tech industry um, for a number of years or for a few years, depending on who we're speaking to, but just to demonstrate the breadth really of what the tech industry is. I know from our experience dealing with students who have come through the boot camp, there's a lot of apprehension about what it really means going into the tech industry. And the truth is not to steal John's thunder, but as we were talking to at the end, there's a common theme that hopefully you'll feel coming through what we talk about and how we approach the industry and the people that work within the industry. So John's talk is going to be called From Newspaper Delivery to People Delivery, a talk on talent. And whilst I would love to introduce, I'm going to hand that over to you, sir, to introduce yourself, to kick off our talk. And one of the things that we did say is if you've got any questions throughout the talk, please drop them straight into chat. I'll be moderating the chat throughout this. So please drop them in, and we're happy to answer questions throughout. That's correct, isn't
Yeah, that's what we said we were going to do. So let's wing it and go by it. No
it?
problem at all.
Fantastic. Thank you, John.
Thanks, James. Okay, well, greetings, everyone. So I'm sat here in my lovely home office with various pictures on the wall, my hat, my Beardo hat on the side there above my Volvo cars lanyard and pass here in the hills between Lancashire and Yorkshire in the UK. But I actually work in a global capacity. So my role is actually globally focused in the talent attraction, identification, attraction, and engagement across the tech world, as well as the traditional blue collar world. Um, I actually report direct into the global headquarters in Sweden,
Oh,
and I'm there at the end of this month and going there. So, why did I say newspaper delivery to people delivery? So, I have to go back a bit and about who I am. Went to school up in Lancashire. Don't tell the wife she's from Yorkshire. The last name of Rose. If you know history about
ooh,
that.
there you
If you
go.
don't know about history, work out what the War of was. So there, and one of the things I wanted to do at the time was I needed to get money because it was only my mum and I. So again, it was from very much a constrained family environment, which a lot of people go through. And I started delivering newspapers and then organizing newspapers and organizing the people who were going to be delivering the newspapers for news agents at the age of 14, 15, 16, while I was doing my O levels, CSEs, O levels, and went to college to do an A level in math because I needed it. And I then went into the RAF, Royal Air Force, because I realized I was too big to fit in an aeroplane to be a pilot, to be because they work on ergonomics and they work on lots of medical conditions that are going to apply for you to be the right size in terms of length of arm, etc. So I
Yeah.
couldn't be part of it. I said, I'll do the next best thing. I'll fix them. I'll make them and
Wow.
I'll fix them. So I did my aerospace systems engineering, and I started the days when it was pulleys, rods, levers, and some hydraulics. Then I went into electrical, learned how to learn electrical, then I had to learn analog, then I had to learn digital,
Wow.
and then cloud services. So my first computer was a Commodore 64, and at work was a
Oh.
BBC where I had a floppy disk and you had to load in the disk to get the operating system going.
I
So
remember
I've always been,
the first computer experience I ever had actually was a Commodore 64, the old brown bed. I think they call it a bread bin,
yes, that's right.
and it was yay big, and it was just the keyboard really, wasn't it? And it plugged it
Yeah,
in, and then it actually had a tape deck, so you used to
yeah.
load all of your
They were the
games
posh
up on.
ones.
Oh, there you go,
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I went and did a program. I did a because I wanted to learn. I believe in if you're going to do something, do it right.
Mm.
So I'd got my education, I'd got my degrees, I'd got my apprenticeship. So I'd got all that, but I wanted to go. So I went to Cambridge University. I got an opportunity to do 6 week. This is what computer programming is really,
Right.
and it was an eye opener. And I learned, and it was actually write a computer program to make a cup of tea for an alien
Yep.
who just arrived in the planet. And you start thinking about that, and that's the principle of coding and programming and looking at. And then they showed me I then got to work on Winchester drives and loading it and writing the commands and still applied that methodology, that mentality.
It's really interesting actually when you talk about making a cup of tea for aliens because on our first taster session, that's one of the things that we get students to do is tell each other literally how to go from one side of the room and put their coat on. And then when
Yeah.
you actually get someone to physically do it, you realize how literal you have to be with computer language because
Yeah.
if you tell it to walk forward, it will keep walking forward until you tell it to stop. So you get people that are turning right, says turn right, and you realize that someone's turning right ad infinitum, or they're walking straight into a wall, or it's an interesting concept. I think that does definitely bring out, doesn't it, as you're delving into the world of computers and computer engineering and getting into the tech, that mindset shift you have to have of
Yeah.
you're interfacing with something which is extremely literal
Yeah.
comparative to, when we're sitting having a chat now and, if I tell you to walk towards the coat, you're intuitively going to know where the coat is as opposed to a computer that will just think carry on walking, for
Yeah.
example.
And don't get me on the current fad of AI. That's we're not there yet. So
No,
don't
we're
get me.
not.
So my back. So I started in engineering. I've lived and worked in my lifetime 54 different countries.
Wow.
But there's been one common denominator in all of it, and that is the people, the human side
Mm,
of interacting and working and collaborating and meeting and encountering different people,
yep.
different cultures, different educational backgrounds, experiential backgrounds, competence backgrounds, everything. When I was 17 and a half, just before I joined the Royal Air Force, it was discovered I was dyslexic. I didn't know I was dyslexic because I thought what I was doing was right.
Yep.
Unless you know, you don't know.
No, you
So
don't.
I,
That's really.
I had to do a major adjustment on doing that, but it actually helped me because I suddenly realized that's why I was doing things wrong
Yep.
in other people's eyes, but not in
Correct.
my eyes, and doing it
Correct.
all. So that helped me in this, and then doing that computer programming course and going to Cambridge and working with Cranfield and working with all these subsequently Lockheed Martin, British Aerospace, Boeing, DASA, Airbus, then
Wow.
working with Rolls Royce, and just on that side of it, then I worked with communications companies like Nokia,
Yep.
Motorola,
Yep.
Ericsson. But these are all technology people. But I needed to know about my limits so I could know how to communicate them to the other people,
So,
so
so
they
if
would
if you don't mind me
understand.
just leaning into that a little bit
Yeah,
though, because I think one of the things that a lot of students and a lot of people that I've spoken to maybe do have, like you say, dyslexia. You see a lot of people come through that have maybe ADHD. A lot
yeah,
of people nowadays as well that I speak to are much more aware of probably the mental health challenges as well around the industry that
yeah.
perhaps historically we weren't so aware of. And I hope you don't mind me diving into this, but I think one of the things is you talked about, and it's a really, really fascinating point for me because you talked about there, you said in other people's minds, I was doing something wrong. In your
Yeah.
minds, obviously, through the sex, you were doing it the way that you should do. How did that feel for you when you sort of understood that was the rationale as to why you were doing things? Did you think it was a weight that was lifted? Did it help you to understand how you engage with people differently, or was it just kind of a, oh, okay, fair enough, and get on with it? How did you react with that when you sort of found that out?
I, I did exact the last one, which was, oh, okay. So that's why the people think that and that. Okay, that's fair enough. Now
Yeah.
I understand and now I know something. It's
Yeah.
it's like I'm going to use a technology analogy.
Yeah.
When you're developing software
Yeah.
or you're developing a technical solution, are you Scrum based? Are you Agile based? Or are you waterfall based? So the traditional waterfall or Prince methodology is do it, build it all, then test it.
Yeah.
And when it fails, you stop and you go back to the beginning again. Well, that is financially suicidal in these days.
Yeah.
You know, mentally it's the challenge, but it goes into what I realized I was doing subconsciously was more right than what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But it was the little things I was failing for the reasons I was doing uh, test developed design.
Yeah.
So I was doing something, doing an activity, then testing it and failing, but I didn't take that as a negative.
Mm.
I took it as a positive of something not to do again.
Right.
And that's with this, whether you got ADD, ADHD, whatever your neurodiversity. The beauty is nowadays you can find out what it is.
Yeah.
It's the not knowing something that is the most harmful to your psyche, to your emotional intelligence, and it brings your AI and therefore your EQ.
Yeah.
It impacts on that because it's that not knowing. It's like getting stopped by a policeman. The first time I got stopped by a policeman,
The first time.
when when I was in, yeah, the first time, yeah, I'm quite often on that. When I was driving in the US, yeah, and got pulled over by a state trooper saying, "Sir, you do realise you were speeding?" And I went, I looked down. I said, "What? I was only doing 75. Oh no, I was doing 100 kilometers an hour. I was calibrated for Canada." He says, "Yes, but in the US we drive in miles per hour, and the
Oh.
speed limit is 45." And I went, "Hang on." Quick mental math. Looked at my speedo. They'll look. Where's 45 mile per hour? Then look. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, officer. I was speeding. I apologize. I didn't know because 100 is what I've set my governor to control.
Yeah.
My cruise control at. Oh, so he went to give me. I said, "But where's the sign that says it's 45?" And he said, "Ah, in the US, if you enter a town, a city, or an area that's got um, habitation in it,
Yeah.
they will have street lights,
Oh,
or
same
they
as
will
the
have
UK today. Yeah.
or a city boundary. They are the speed limit signs."
Mm.
And I went, "I didn't know that." He said, "Oh, well, that's okay." So I explained how the UK does it. I explained how Canada was doing it, where I just come from. He went, "Oh, that's okay. But now you do know you're not going to do it again." I said, "No, no. I'm going to set my cruise control for 90 kilometers an hour, which means I'll always be in the safe zone."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, "Perfect. Thank you very much. No ticket today. Thank you very much for listening and everyone else." So again, if you don't know something, don't think you're going to get punished for
Yeah.
doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You only punish yourself if you do it wrong again when you do know.
And I think that's an interesting or a very good point. And I think there's a lot of people that come into the industry. And something we always talk about is the expectation on you to have to know everything straight out of the gate. And
Yeah.
I think there's sort of two linked points here for me. I think the first linked point is going into the industry and having neurodiversity and understanding that. And even if you think that there's something that maybe you're experiencing, is to ask questions to understand yourself if that is something that maybe you are I don't want to say suffering with, but you have, because I don't think you suffer with any of these things. I think that
Oh
they're
no.
they're, they're a part of your personality and they're part of who you are. And I think the point of what you were saying there is if you understand who you are, you're better able to make those adjustments that you need to do in your career, for example. I think the
Yeah.
second point there really as well that I just really do want to pull out of that and really bring home hopefully for the audience is you can't know everything. This is an extreme case of where as a policeman where ultimately
Yeah.
it could have been a ticket, right?
What would have been? Yeah.
but in your work career, there's going to be so many situations where you do something wrong, but if you explain, and also the thing you did there as well, which is a really good point to bring out as well, is you rationalize as to why you were doing something,
Yeah.
then that allows someone to explain to you this is how to best approach it. So yeah, I think there's a couple of really good points there. Sorry, you were sort of discussing before as your career through, and there was a lot of changes you were talking about there. So
Oh,
you went from, almost analog to digital, etc. What was the biggest jump in your career, and how did you manage that?
I think the biggest jump is what we're going through now. So in what they call an industry 4.5,
Right.
industry 5.0. When you look at the advancements in from a technological perspective, go back to the 70s or the 80s and look at what you have in the house, in the home, in your accommodation.
Mm.
You have a look at what you've got there from a technology perspective. You had a valve driven TV. You had a dialed telephone, which was on, when you picked up the phone, you could hear the clicks, the dicks, and everything else, the mechanical, connectivity systems are going there. Your lighting, you didn't have LED lighting, you know, you did a lot of them. You didn't have the fluorescent lighting. You were going back to the old incandescent lighting, and the washing machines, the dryers, all that and how we've advanced technologically. And you think of you know, this thing now is more powerful than any computers we used to have. And you mentioned the Commodore 64,
Yeah.
it couldn't even power this thing up. It
Yeah.
hasn't got the ability. So the biggest change really has been in the last 10 to 15 years from a technology perspective, but a lot of it is the same.
Mm.
What is the driving fundamental software principles? Script basing. We went from having to write scripting and coding to then what you see is what you get. So it
Yeah.
was like jigsaw puzzle pieces, moving them around to make a different picture, but they were already pre-built,
Yeah.
which is very good in a non-complex environment, but completely useless in a technologically advanced, varying environment.
Yeah.
Looking at so we've now going back to the scripting based and looking at whether you're looking at using Rust or using Python or using TypeScript, JavaScript, any of those Node, they're all basically the same, but they require the ability to think in how do I make a cup of tea? How do I make a cup of coffee and explain to someone? I learned DOS as my first language. That's the same as scripting. So it took me a week to get on board with TypeScript
Mm.
because of what I'd done previously, the transferability of knowledge and skills. So don't try to, I never tried to be a subject matter expert in one.
Yeah.
I tried to be a generalist expert in many
Yeah.
that could then be applied
Yeah.
to one.
So obviously, how long have you been in recruitment? Through your career, because obviously that's where you are now. What point did you start? So I've got a couple of comments coming through in chat that I just
Oh,
wanted to bring up. So
yeah, please do.
um, I read somewhere that technology advances exponentially, which rings true compared to what Mr. Rose is saying here. And it's very true. We build something, then we build a tool that lets us build the same thing, but more efficiently, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I think what they're trying to say here is, yes, technology is constantly advancing,
Yeah, yeah,
and we're going around in these loops. Exactly what you're saying about,
yeah,
building a tool, having to get back to the basic understanding, building a tool, having to get back to it.
yeah.
So, sorry, we were discussing about your recruitment, or your journey into recruitment. So you'd gone from, um,
Aerospace systems engineer.
there we
So
go.
I then moved into a management, a senior management role, and I was given a task coming to the end of my time. Was I worked with Westland Aerospace, with British Aerospace, and there was a project that came in where they wanted to convert 10 A300 aircraft from passenger to freighters.
Right.
And they said, "Would you like to project manage that?" And I said, "Yeah, it's £350 million project." Why not? That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
You know, I'm weird when it comes to doing
about to say we have
things
different
like,
ideas of fun converting planes,
yeah, it's
but fair
obscure.
enough. We'll go for that.
Yeah. So they said, "Oh, great. Here's your team." So on a project plan or a design plan or any development plan, you have elements. And one of the key components is what are the resources you've got
Yeah,
available. And I said, which idiot gave me these people as the team to deliver this? They're not right.
right,
They said, well, if you can do any better, go and do it yourself. So I went out and I got 60 guys
right,
that I knew or other people knew. Who's the best airframe rigging individual? Who's the best stress engineer? So I got this, if you want, an elite team together to convert these aircraft, and they did it. We delivered it on budget. Well, I had shorter budget, so we didn't spend as much money. But
nice.
they won't give us any of it. But they kept that for themselves for something else. But we took the pride in we delivered it, and we got
And
there.
so this was the first experience you'd really had in
Yeah,
building a team. I mean, that's a large team straight off the bat. 60
yeah.
people.
But I've been used to going off and working with teams and going off to different environments and locations geographically around the world. But this was in the UK. This was
Yeah,
based at Filton, for British Aerospace. If anyone knows, Bristol area. So at the end, they said, "Oh, you built a team. Oh, you were recruiting then?" And I went, "No, I built a team." They said, "That's called recruiting."
right.
So I then turned around and said, I enjoyed the people side of it and the building the people, not so much the project side and getting my hands dirty
Yeah,
and doing the work, but building the teams to do it and recruit. So I said, so I went back to school and I went and did a business, HND in business, focused on human resource management,
right.
recruitment, and training and development.
Excellent. Okay.
Because the training and development was a key component, was because if a person has got the abilities but hasn't got the knowledge, you need to upskill them, acknowledge them.
Yep.
So you need to know how to do that properly. So I did the L&D, P&D side of things,
And and
as
and
well as the recruitment.
and if you don't mind me asking, sorry, this is exactly something we were talking about in the kickoff that we had with the team in the groups this morning. So this is not pre-scripted, and hopefully this is going to come out. But what do you think is more important? Do you think it's more about personality and ambition, or more about hard skills when you're going into a role?
It's 70% is soft skills, 30% is hard skills.
Incredible. I'm so glad we're aligned on that because that could have gone
Yeah,
terribly
most
wrong.
most companies look for 60 to 70% hard skills because they've only got the ability and the time and the constraints to give 30% dedicated to upskilling, acknowledging,
Yeah,
transferring. But one of the things, going back to what I said before about scripting languages, if you can ride a 3-speed push bike, if I then give you a 5-speed push bike, how long would it take to learn to ride that?
yeah,
You only have to learn the difference. And I would beg her to say that you usually use 2 gears,
yeah,
you know, one to start off and the last one to go like hell downhill.
yeah. Right.
So you don't use all five, but
Yeah.
but it's the principles that we're looking at there, and it's the
Do you
same.
think that
So
holds true in your experience? Does that hold true with junior roles or more senior roles? Do you think in junior roles are they looking more for personality, or in junior roles they're looking more for skills, or in senior roles?
they're looking for core competencies, and competencies are the language of the day,
Right.
the words and the buzzwords of the day, and what they look for. What are your core competencies? Whether it's developing a product, developing an application, developing an API, developing something like that. What it does is immaterial.
Mhm.
What it hooks into is immaterial. It's the ability to. So that's the competence of. Then the personality is the desire, the energy, the passion to do it better next
Yeah.
time and to learn new ways of doing it with new tools and new methodologies and new philosophies
Yeah.
in life and not judging others and looking at and doing that side. So it's very much being the human side because you will hear lots of things, the future of work and we have got a talent shortage. No, we haven't got a talent shortage. We've got a people shortage.
Mm.
People who have got the abilities, the desire, and the drive to deliver, to do what we want. Because if you apply to a company, unless you've worked at that company before, you don't really know what they do and how they do it.
Hmm.
You have to guesstimate based upon some words that have been created magically by an invisible person or chat GPT, that says a description, but is usually says a lot, but actually has no substance to it.
Yeah.
It's the interview,
Yeah.
the three-step process. Your CV gets you considered for an interview.
Yeah.
An interview gets you considered for a test assessment evaluation.
Yeah.
A test assessment evaluation, passing it gets you considered for a job.
Yeah. And this is exactly what
That's the
I was.
cycle. That's the cycle.
And this is exactly what I was saying earlier. Is how do you stand out at that CV point? How do you make yourself memorable at interview? How do you have
Yeah,
enough technical knowledge to pass the test? And then you hope that all three of those things linking you into it means that you're the lucky person that gets the job, right? That's what you're always hoping.
yeah, and that's the way it is. And it doesn't make a difference what the job is you're going for.
Mm.
It applies exactly the same. I was talking to my son. I just got back from Amsterdam. I've been at a conference there, applying this thinking, this methodology and approach, and learning what others are doing. So companies like Amazon,
Mm.
working with the Mang people as well. Used to be Fang, but it's now Mang, so it's Meta, Amazon,
Yeah.
etc. And who else I was talking to? Siemens, Airbus. God, there was about 100 odd companies. There's different companies, and everyone was saying exactly the same. What they're looking at, how they go about it, what they do. People are terrible at selling themselves.
Mm.
They sell what they think the recipient wants to receive,
Right.
not what they are. It's about you as a person, what you've done, what you can do, and providing evidence of it and looking at. So if you've got the first thing everyone should have, and I'm going to add a caveat to this at the end. Everyone should have a portfolio
Yeah.
they've done, even if it's a simple document. It doesn't have to be a coding example, or if that's not relevant to the job and the work,
Yeah.
but it should be something that says, hey, yeah, I had this task, this object I'd never done before.
Yeah.
Here's what the task was. Here was my approach to finding the solution. Here's what I did, and
Yeah.
here's was the result. I failed because it sucked.
Yeah.
But guess what? What did you learn? But I learned from that. If I did an evaluation. If I'd done this, it would have worked.
And John, I love that approach. I think that's absolutely right. By the way, I think that's brilliant. I think having a portfolio that even it's well, it could be a web page, it could be a document. Exactly what you say. It's kind
Yeah,
of what a CV is, but there's a lot more ways of doing that than just a CV on paper now. But you really hit on something there that's so important. I think we always strive to make sure that everything we do is absolutely perfect when actually the learning comes in the failure, in getting it
correct.
wrong.
Yeah,
And this harks back to exactly what you said a second ago, which is we think we're trying to sell ourselves. We think we're trying to sell ourselves on this perfect image of something that people want, this finished product. And the truth is actually what people, in my opinion, really want as well is that demonstration that you've tried something, you've given it a go, you've failed, and that you can learn from that failure. So I think that's something really, really important. I think thank you for bringing that up. That says actually no, it doesn't have to be perfect, and there's a lot of learning in not being perfect.
yeah. And I think we've, as a society, our hiring and recruitment and our application process, we've got two terminologies we use. We use CV
Hmm.
or resume. I love the North American resume approach. And the reason being, someone asked me for my CV. this was at corporate Volvo cars before I joined them. And I said, "You sure you want my CV?" They went, "Why?" I said, "It's 39 pages long." I said, "Let's go back and do a bit of a history lesson of what is a CV. It's a documented record of your life, your experiences, your education, your learning and development." I said, "And over my length of time, I have got 39 pages of information on there."
Yeah.
They went, "Yeah, we just want 2 pages." "Oh, you want a resume then?"
Yeah.
"You want an encapsulation of relevant, related information." So you can have a what I call a master document, like having a master code repository.
Yeah.
You can have GitHub, where you've got all your repositories, you've got all your classes, you've got everything in there, but it's all different.
Yeah.
But if someone says, "Oh, I want to know what you've done that focused on JavaScript," oh, here we go. Here's 2 repositories of project work I did, on GitHub, that relates to JavaScript. But you will also see I've got repositories based on Ruby, on Java, on .NET, you know, and they go on TypeScript, on Python,
Yeah.
and they're going, "Oh, right." So what you're doing is you're pointing them to what they've asked for, but you're giving them visibility of extensive other things as well,
Yeah.
related things and activities.
And this is something that I was talking to the people on the boot camp currently. This morning I said, think about 3 career paths that you might want to take. Think about 3 that might be relevant for you. Now that doesn't mean that all of them have exactly the same resume, let's call it, and or
Mm.
cover letter, because
No.
each one will have different soft skills that I'm sure you have, but it's
Yeah.
about aligning those skills and your individual experiences to the type of role that you're going for. And I think this sounds like it was all pre-planned, and it's really not, which I think is brilliant. But what you're
No.
saying here is exactly the same. Really what you're trying to do is demonstrate your personal fit to a situation. We've
Yeah.
got all of this library of experience, and maybe giving people access to that in your portfolio as well that they can go and explore is fine. But actually, when you're certainly applying for roles, it's about applying yourself and the roles in the context of the thing you're going for and packaging it
Yeah.
that way almost.
And that's exactly what you've got to do and look at, and you have to interpret what um, what they're saying in the job ad, in the promotion, the communication that you've had regarding a role or a company, because a company might not have a job that's advertised, but you really, really want to work for that company. The first question is Simon Sinek, who stole it from us as quality people. The what, or the why, the what, and the how. Why do you want to work for that company, or apply for that job? You know, how do you relate to it? How do you have what they're looking for, what they're saying, what they're doing that for? And provide the what details of it
Yeah,
all. And go in there. So you've got to look at the 3 all the time in every activity you do, in your career, your job search, your history. And the hardest time to do a job search is when you're not working.
yeah, yeah,
When you are working, or if you're doing in the course in college and universities, on the program at the moment for yourselves, looking at that, saying, "Okay, what are they saying? What have I got, or what have I got to do then?" I actually, someone who applied for one of my roles, it's a senior architect role, but it's in the US. So please don't apply unless you're in the US. And yeah, it's a senior architect role they're looking for, but no one's ever done it before. So
right.
they're not going to have someone who's got the perfect framework, skill set, competencies, abilities, and levels, because it's never been done before in the US.
Yeah,
But it has been done in Europe. And yes, so if someone's got anything about them, they will say, "Well, hang on, similar type of role, person doing that role in Europe, in Sweden, in the UK, yeah, I see what they've got. I can write my presentation of myself bearing that in mind and
You,
looking at
you raised a really good point here as well, actually, about companies that maybe not hiring at the moment, but understanding your why is why you'd like to work there. As someone who's been in a hiring position for like yourself, do you ever hire for a role that's not open? And
oh God, yeah. Holy moly.
what?
That's what you want. If you want that's if you can find the right person ahead of the time of the need,
Mhm.
then you're better off. I've never hired someone for a role that wasn't open. I've hired someone 3 months ahead of a role opening.
Incredible.
So what I've said to them, I said, right, this is when you're going to be starting. This is when it's going to be. This is what you're going to be doing. In that time, you need to look at this, and this in skills, in technologies, and look at the frameworks, because this is what we're going to do. But here's your offer, and here's the start date for you.
Incredible. So I
And they
think that
go, all right, oh, right, okay. So they're the more motivated then, the more energized, the more positive. And it's like they all saying, if you don't ask a question, how are you going to know the answer?
so.
Yeah,
Would you for people on the course? I mean, for me, I'm thinking if you live in a certain area and there's a big employer in the area that's doing the sort of things that you have an affinity with, you'd recommend get an email out to them, introduce yourself, let
yeah.
them know what your
Oh God,
skills are.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've got to do that, and in fact, that should be. And I'm not teaching
No, no,
you how to
please.
suck eggs. What you've got to do is every student on your course should identify 3, 5, 8, 10 companies they want to work for. And then part of the research then is go and find out who are the people at that company that they want to work for. So by looking at saying the engineering manager, the digital, cyber security, whatever area you want to work in, who's doing it because the information is out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then just contact them, find the contact information, send the message out to them, and send the email out and say, don't bother with this. Don't send a CV. Don't sell.
yeah,
You're asking them. You want them to sell the company to you, saying, "Hey, I'm on this program. One of my tasks is who do I really want to work for? You know, and your company is number one on the list.
even
Or
if they're
my
number seven, you
on
can still
my
say they're number one, right?
oh no, you use the same story for each one because if you use the same story for each one,
Yeah,
if one of them comes back to you, you know you said to them they were number one.
exactly.
If you said they were number five or they were number seven or number three, you'll never remember what they said to them. But if you said the same to everyone,
They were all number
then
one.
they're all number one at that moment in time, especially the ones that respond. They're definitely number one. So by doing it, you turn and say, this is what, and it's the why, the how, and the what.
Yeah,
If you give that information, there's only one thing the worst thing they can do is ignore you.
yeah,
But that's no different than never apply it.
yeah. And I think that's one thing that we were talking about this morning again is, you will get that time when people don't reply to you, where you don't get a
Ghosting.
response.
It's called ghosting. And that happens to me daily.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I reach out, and most of my work, because of what I do, my role and remit within Volvo cars, is people don't apply to my jobs. I go and find the people.
yeah,
So I go out and identify them, then attract with them and engage with them. So I go out. They don't know me from Adam. They
yeah,
don't know Volvo cars. People think they know Volvo cars. We don't make cars. That's a secondary. We develop technology solutions for Volvo cars, which is safety, reliability, and and sustainability. That's what we make.
yeah.
Oh, it happens to be a car,
Right.
or it happens to be a widget, or it happens to be a roof rack, or a component within that can be used across platform, across different things. Looking at it, if you think of Microsoft Office, you know, what do you think is the underlying trend for all Microsoft products, and looking at that side, it's SharePoint.
Yeah.
It's how it works. It's a database. Oh, that was built by Access, which was actually originally on Excel. So you structured, for structured databases and data. So it's very similar. So for me, find the people that you'd like to work for and get and communicate with them.
No, incredible. And I think that there can always be a bit of apprehension, especially when you're first coming into the industry. I think the thing that I would say, and I'd love to hear your take on it, is this is a career. I know now when you look at certainly the younger people in the job market, a career might be defined by 10, 15 years. Historically, careers may have been 20, 30 years. But there's no harm, is there, in making those connections now? It might not be the right fit today, but it could be the right fit tomorrow, right?
It will be. That's one of the beauties that you've got today compared to what we had pre 2004. Because since 2004, really November 2006, LinkedIn is in the
Mm,
world. It's
yeah.
called the Blue Monster, the devil, the devil in blue. It makes the devil in Prada look quite nice in comparison. If you know the movie, if you don't watch it, you'll understand. She is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a tool the same as you've got your GitHub, you've got your Stack Overflow, your Stack Exchange for the technology based solutions. Whether you're front end, UI, UX, your back end, your middleware, your embedded, whichever your DevOps, your SIOps, whichever way you're going and whichever floats your boat, you know, I don't really care. And a lot of companies won't do. They'll want to know what do you care? What matters to you? What's important to you? What can you offer and what can you deliver? And doing that, and that's what you've got to do. So doing it, it's quite an interesting conundrum. Now you've got that. That's the best tool you can have because it tells you so much information. Gives
Yeah.
you so much that you can see the types of people that work there, see what they do. You get an understanding of them then as individuals, the people, the human side, not the technology side.
I'm just gonna just before I ask you a follow-up
Is it?
question on that, I'm just gonna open up to the chat. If anyone's got any questions for John, please type it in chat now and just consider it the number of questions we normally get. Just open up now. So please, if you have any questions, drop them in chat and I'll make sure I moderate them. You talked about humans there, and I think that
Yeah.
this is probably something we want to bring through. You've talked about making connections. You've talked about, getting yourself out there early doors when going into the industry. You've talked about the fact that people hire on individuals as well. It can be quite daunting though, can't it, to put yourself out there as someone coming into the space and really exposing yourself because when you expose yourself as a human, people are emotive and they feel that it's more personal rejection. But what would you say to people about going out there and that fear of rejection and fear of being ghosted? How would you say to people to move on from that and get through that?
I think I apply an engineering philosophy. If you don't fail, you've never lived.
Yeah,
You need to embrace the fact that not everyone likes you. Not everyone supports the same football team, cricket team, sports team, activity, human, transactional aspect of life. Not everyone's the same. And you've got to accept that, but accept it with grace, with respect, and with positivity. Because you've actually learned something. You've learned that that company, that business, that person doesn't need someone like yourself, doesn't have an opportunity for someone like yourself. Combination of soft and hard skills, they're not going for it. So it's not the right fit. So you know in the future, you don't apply to that company, that organization, because you're not a fit. They've already told you. So, hey, thank you. That's great.
yeah,
No problem. It's like you're going shopping for something. You're selling a product. The product is you, the human, the person. If someone doesn't want to buy you, is that wrong? No. It means it's not the right time, the right opportunity. or the right situation, circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, you go into a grocery store and going to Sainsbury's, going to Tesco's, and you look on the tinned vegetables shelf, and you may have 3 or 4 options. You may have bachelor's mushy peas, real mushy peas, and you might next to it bachelor's marrow fat. Well, where do you think mushy peas come from? They come from marrow fat. All they've done is one step level less in the process of development into mushy peas. Yeah. And then they have next door to that, they just have your garden peas or your petit pois, whatever they want, depends if they want to be, attract the French language people or whatever. So they've got, but they're all the same product, peas. Why do they have different ones? Because not everyone likes one over the other.
Yeah. Or needs it for
They,
that time, right?
yeah, and they don't take offense.
No.
So you don't take offense. You are the product
Yeah.
that you're trying to sell. Some will like it, some won't. So
And as you say, some will have a need for it. Then it really can be situational and circumstantial,
yeah,
can't it?
we build at the moment. We build most companies that I know of that are medium sized and above. So medium is defined as anything more than 500 people. So medium sized and above. But I know a lot of small companies, which is less than 500, also do the same. They have got what they call future prospect. So they may look at you and go, not today,
Yeah.
but maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. And that was
We want
definitely
you,
something that we were doing. My background was in a big US, and our talent pipeline was constantly looking at who could step into roles, who could move up through the organization, who
oh
were
yeah,
we.
I do that all the time.
Oh, that's your
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. But we've got 160,000 people in ours
right, there you go.
around the globe.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot.
One of the question here is,
Yeah,
I'm not sure how it applies to tech, but I'm thinking about historically when I've looked for a role,
careers, jobs.
many companies have asked for years of experience,
Yeah.
which I don't have, but should I apply if you don't have the said experience on a requirement? I guess this is
No,
one for
no, you should not, because if they've said they're looking for 3, 5, 2, 1, 10 years of experience, you have to read what do they mean. Do they mean in a specific years of experience in a specific activity, function, technology, skill, competence? Or are they looking for years of experience out of school
mm,
that you've learned in life?
interesting.
And and I have to relate it to the tech because that's the primary function of what we're looking at here is I need someone with 15 plus years of experience in architecting platform solutions.
Yeah,
Okay. And our core development language is Java and Python. If someone says to me they've got 15 years of Python, I call them a liar straight away because it hasn't been around for 15 years.
there you go. And there's a lot of
So,
internet things around
so
that,
you've
right?
right, so you've got to read into what do they mean by experience. You could have worked in a foundry. You could have worked in a steel production environment, working there where you've been, you know, working on schedules, working with people, doing lots of different things. But think of it in terms of what have you gained, what experience have you gained that is transferable into what you want to do going forward. Where you say, whilst I've not got 3 years experience in, leading a software development team, I have got 2 years experience in leading a multifaceted, multifunctional development, engineering development team, or a shop fitting out team, you know, working in multiple locations around the country and all the logistics that's involved. And, I've developed knowledge and the base fundamental skills of software development, UI, UX, and applied that on several projects where I led a project team in developing a solution to the problem, the challenge that was given us within the program. let them decide whether or not that's relevant experience or not.
Right.
You don't decide.
Yeah.
But if they ask specifically, need someone with 3 years Java, then guess what? You haven't got 3 years Java. But if everything else, if it looks like something you want, apply generically to the company, not to that specific role or position.
No, thank you for that. And I think that's a very well considered answer, and I really appreciate that one. What's the single most important piece of advice you can give to people who are now getting into the tech market and hoping to find a job? We knew this one was coming. It's a great question. The
I
one
love it.
piece of advice, and it's
One piece,
hard, right? But
no, be real.
oh,
Be
incredible.
real of your abilities and your expectations. I work on a three-legged stool. What do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? And how much do you want to get paid doing it?
There.
And each one of the legs must be equal length. If you've disconnected, and it'd be nice when it's law, where we have to put the salary ranges on the job ad
Right.
when they're promoting opportunities within the company, whether it's internal or external. We've
Yeah.
got to put that. And I think we should do as well. If you say, well, yeah, great location because it's a mile from my house. It's doing what I really want to do, but they're only offering me 15 pounds an hour and I want 30 pounds an hour. Well, guess what? You might have to move to another location or look at a different company to achieve that 30 pound an hour.
Yeah.
So one of the elements has to change and looking at. So be realistic and be honest
Yeah.
is the best advice I can give when you go forward and looking at, because if you're not being realistic and being honest, then you've got no chance,
No, I think
because and that's to yourself as well.
agreed. Agreed. You mentioned earlier the difference between a CV and a resume. When
Yeah.
someone asks for a CV, do you think they're really asking for a resume? This
No.
person
Yeah.
says that,
Yes, they are.
yeah,
Because what they want is a two-page, allowed to have three, document that focuses on what that role, that position is. So, what are the soft skills? What are the hard skill requirements? Provide doing the STAR, situation, task, activities, and results. So what have you got that means that you would be perfect for that role? That's a resume,
yeah,
but that's just it's given a title: potato,
yeah,
tomato. You
yeah,
know, it's it's the same. Most people nowadays do not want to see a CV. The exception to that is the educational system. But if you're applying for a job in education, you need to give a CV, which is your warts and all history.
yeah, yeah. And we understand that that's for safeguarding and things like that. People need to know where
So
you've
that's
been
what
at
we
all
need.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever, at any point in your career, struggle with a skills gap, and
Oh yeah.
what did you do to bridge that gap?
Two ways. Many times I've had a skills gap. Skills and knowledge are the same.
Yeah,
You can have the knowledge but not the skill, or you can have the skill but not the knowledge. So it's what are you going to do to fill that void, that gap? Are you going to do an online course? Are you going to find someone that you can go to and say, hey, I need to learn this, I need to do this, but I need to apply it in a work environment. Can I be an intern with you for a week and apply it and do it and just learn to see and to gain that knowledge and that experience, and looking at. I'm an old dog who learns new tricks every day.
and there's so much value in that. And for me, I think going through my career as well, just to mirror what you've said there, is the first thing you have to do is you have to identify the gap. You have to know what it is you're
Yeah,
missing, and then it really is about down selecting from that what the opportunities to learn those skills are. You just given two really good pieces of
yeah.
advice. So
And
some
I think the other thing about that is you've got a skills gap. How do you know you've got a skills gap for a particular role or an opportunity with a company, unless you talk to them?
yeah,
And quite often they don't know what the gap is.
yeah, right,
They they know what the problem is, but they don't know how to solve it. So they look at that. So quite often, talking to them, you find out you've got an experience that is transferable, that compensates for the gap area, that can help partly fill it whilst you're going off and doing a learning program, on Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn learning platform, local college, something, something there that can fill that smaller void, that smaller gap,
Yeah.
because your transferability has got something.
What is a must on a resume when applying for a tech-based role?
A must is honesty. You must not put things down you have not done.
Yeah, that's very good.
Technologies that you've heard of but got no clue about.
Yeah,
So you must do that. If you've got a test where you've done and you failed, you must put that down.
yeah,
But you also add what you did about it to resolve it. So, that test TDD you talked about, the test development, design, and looking at, tried it, built it, tried it, it failed, went back, adjusted it, tried it, failed, went back, adjusted it. Oh, look, it worked. What did we do? Right, this is the thing. So that's what you must put in there, and it's not being too clever, you know. And because we say it should be normally 2 pages is what they look for
yeah,
as an example. Make sure you've got a link to a portfolio so you've got evidence
yeah.
of what you're saying.
Perfect.
So have that and look at it very much. And I keep on using GitHub because most companies, even on closed source, not open source, but on closed source, they're doing that, still look towards GitHub for people having repositories and having some type of information about themselves.
We say to put your GitHub on there. I think it's a really really good thing to do. Put your GitHub
Yeah,
because it shows your if you do a boot camp, it shows after a boot camp that you're carrying on to continue to learn
yeah,
and doing that. Um, we're hitting a time wall now. We've got some other questions that I think are coming in at the moment. Is it okay for me to send you an email just with the follow-up questions and just to
yeah.
get your feedback? Is that okay?
Please
Um,
do, please
I
do.
just from me and everyone here at Tech Educators and everyone that's listening, I really wanted to thank you for your time. That was an incredible talk just about. And I said to you at the start, I said, "Are you gonna have any slides?" And you said, "No, it's a talk. We're going to talk." And I really
Yeah,
appreciate that. It was really nice just to sort of let the conversation flow and go to where it needed to go to. Lots of incredible advice in there, and thank you so much for that. So I'm gonna one last question. There's a few more questions coming in. I will email because there is a few
yeah.
coming in now. So, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with people because it's greatly appreciated and really important. Thank you for that.
And so, and if anyone's any good and they want to connect with me on the Blue Devil, go to Google and type in resourceful John.
There you go.
That's all one word. You find that's my username, and you will find me in every place, 350 different platforms, technologies, sites, including the Blue Devil. That's my name. So you will find me. If you want to connect and you want to check me out, you can do. You want to stalk me, you can do. I don't care. But if you connect with me or you stalk me, be prepared for me to go back at you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
James, thank you very much. And thanks to everyone else. And all good luck. And don't ever be afraid to ask a question.